Imagine a place where the concept of night has no meaning, because day has never broken there. The temperature here is just a few degrees above absolute zero. It is a cosmic cold that would instantly turn any gas known to us into solid ice. The silence here is so deep that you could hear your own heart beating, if, of course, you could survive in a vacuum. We are in the depths of the Orion constellation. To the naked eye, this is just a dark patch in the night sky, the void between stars, an abyss. But if your eyes could see in the infrared spectrum like a predator in a dark forest, this darkness would vanish, and instead of a void, you would see a fire. This is exactly what the James Webb Space Telescope did. It aimed its golden mirrors at this point, pierced through thick layers of cosmic dust with its gaze, and beamed back an image that made astronomers hold their breath. In the center of the frame, surrounded by a dense cocoon of gas and dust, an object was pulsating. It was unstable. It was furious. It was ejecting jets of matter into space at speeds of hundreds of kilometers per second. This is not a dying star. This is not a black hole. We call this object HOPS 315. And you are looking at a birth. At this very moment, while we draw breath, somewhere out there, 1,300 light years away, gravity is crushing a giant cloud of dust. Matter is falling into the center with such force that it ignites a thermonuclear fire. But James Webb saw something even more incredible there. Rotating around this newborn star is a disk, a dark, dense, chaotic disk. And inside it, processes are occurring that we previously considered only theoretical equations on paper. Planets are forming there, right now, in real time. This discovery changes everything, because HOPS 315 is not just a distant object in a NASA catalog. It is a mirror. For the first time in human history, we have been given the chance to look at our own childhood. 4.5 billion years ago, in the place where you are standing now, in the place where your house stands, and in the place where the moon is, there was exactly the same chaos, the exact same vortex of dust and fire. We have always asked the question, where did we come from? And now, the answer is in front of us. But to decipher what the telescope saw and to understand the frightening truth about our own origins, we need to take a step back first. We need to remember what our solar system would prefer to forget. Imagine you are a detective. You are called to a crime scene. But there is a problem. The crime happened 4.5 billion years ago. The house burned down to the ground, the wind scattered the ashes, the witnesses are long dead, and a new skyscraper has already been built on the foundation. This is exactly the position astronomers are in when they try to understand the history of the solar system. We live on Earth. We walk on it every day. We know its geography, the composition of its atmosphere, and even what lies in its core. But we have a giant blind spot. Our system has total amnesia regarding its birth. In school, we were told a beautiful, streamlined story. It is called the nebular hypothesis. It goes something like this. There was a cloud of gas. It began to spin and flatten into a disk like pizza dough in the hands of a chef. The sun ignited in the center, and from the leftover dust around it, planets began to form slowly, peacefully, and neatly, speck by speck, pebble by pebble. Sounds logical, right? It's a great story. There is just one problem. It doesn't work. As soon as astrophysicists started loading this model into supercomputers, physics said no. There is a problem that keeps scientists awake at night. It is called the meter barrier. And here is how it works. Imagine the dust bunnies under your bed. They clump together easily thanks to electrostatics. This works in space for particles the size of a grain of sand. Gravity is also understandable. It works for objects the size of a mountain or a continent. But between them lies an abyss. When rocks in space grow to the size of a soccer ball or a small car, the magic disappears. They don't have enough gravity to attract others yet. But electrostatics no longer works. And when such a rock, a meter in size, crashes into another rock, they don't stick together. They don't merge. They collide at the speed of a bullet and shatter into dust. By all laws of classical physics, the process of planet formation should have stopped at this stage. The universe should be filled with stars surrounded by belts of boulders and sand. no planets, no Earth, and of course, no us. But we are here. I am speaking and you are listening. That means something overcame this barrier. Something forced these rocks to step over the laws of physics and turn into worlds. Some incredible force or event that we missed in our equations. We built theories. We came up with complex mathematical models of vortex instability and gas drag. But these were just guesses. We were reading tea leaves, looking at the scars of the moon and the craters of Mars. All our evidence was circumstantial. We desperately needed a witness. We needed to catch the universe red-handed. The theories hit a dead end. Scientists argued for decades. We needed to see this impossible process with our own eyes. We needed a place where the meter barrier is being broken right now. And we found it. Finding the crime scene is only half the battle. The main problem is that the universe is very good at keeping its secrets. Places where stars are born are the dirtiest corners of the cosmos, literally. They are filled with an incredible amount of dust, gas, and debris. For astronomers, this dust has always been a curse. It works like a heavy curtain. If you look at such a nebula through a regular telescope, or even through the legendary Hubble, you see majestic, beautiful, but absolutely impenetrable columns of smoke. You see the shell, but you don't see what is happening inside. It's like trying to make out what's happening inside a burning house while standing on the street in thick smoke. You don't need binoculars, you need a thermal camera. This is exactly why we built James Webb. Its giant gold-plated mirrors were not created to catch the same light our eyes see. They were created to catch heat, infrared radiation. For an infrared beam, cosmic dust is practically transparent. Where Hubble saw a wall, Webb sees an open window. The telescope team pointed it at the Orion B cloud. This is, perhaps, the most active star factory in our neighborhood, and among thousands of objects, they were looking for one specifically. In the catalogs, it was listed under the dry index HOPS 315. For most telescopes of the past, it was just a dim dot, indistinguishable noise in the picture, but Webb unfolded this dot into a full picture. Imagine a dense cocoon, a huge egg of matter, inside which a heart is beating. Scientists call such objects Class 0 protostars. This is the earliest, most hidden stage of stellar evolution. The star inside isn't even a full-fledged star in our understanding yet. It doesn't shine due to nuclear fusion. It shines due to gravitational compression. It is literally being crushed by its own weight, and this friction heats it white hot. Around it is darkness. But this darkness is alive. Webb transmitted images where we saw the structure of this cocoon from the inside for the first time. We didn't just see a glowing ball. We saw a complex architecture made of jets, streams of gas shooting from the star's poles, and an accretion disk rotating around the equator. It was like turning on the lights in a dark room where a brawl is taking place. The telescope focused. Gigabytes of data flew across millions of kilometers of void, were received by the Deep Space Network antennas, and landed on servers in Baltimore. And when astronomers decoded this signal, translated the numbers into images and graphs, silence fell. What they saw on the monitors didn't just supplement existing theories, it screamed that astronomy textbooks would have to be rewritten from scratch. Let's face the truth. The word star evokes pleasant associations for us: warmth, light, stability. But what Webb saw in the center of HOPS 315 has nothing to do with stability. Astronomers classify this object as a Class 0 protostar. If translated from scientific to human terms, it is an embryo. But this is not a peaceful infant sleeping in a cradle. This is a hungry, aggressive organism that is devouring its parent nebula. In the center of this vortex lies the core. It is still cold by stellar standards, but gravity compresses it with such force that the temperature rises every second. Matter falls onto the surface of the star not as a gentle rain, but as an all-consuming waterfall. Shockwaves from this fall ripple out in circles, shaking the entire cloud. Imagine a tornado but hundreds of billions of kilometers in size, and instead of air, swirling inside it is superheated gas, silicate dust, and ice grit. And here is where James Webb did something no one else could. The telescope's spectrometers broke down the light coming from this hell into its components. They literally sniffed the air around the newborn star. We expected to find hydrogen there, helium, simple elements of the periodic table. But the data showed something that made chemists' eyes go wide. First, there is water, oceans of water, but not in liquid form, but in the form of vapor and ice coating the dust grains. Second, there is methane, ammonia, and carbon monoxide. But the main shock lay ahead. In the spectrum of HOPS 315, distinct traces of complex organic molecules were found, including dimethyl ether and methanol. Put simply, alcohol. Space is a giant bar. Floating around this young star are clouds of alcohol, exceeding all the water reserves on Earth by millions of times in volume. And this isn't just a fun fact for a party. This is a fundamental discovery. Methanol and other complex molecules we found are the building blocks of life. This is that very mud from which later, with a stroke of luck, amino acids, proteins, and DNA are made. We used to think that organics form on planets billions of years later, that life is an accident that arose in warm puddles on ancient Earth. HOPS 315 tells us the opposite. The ingredients for life exist before the planet itself even appears. They are brewing in this stellar cauldron from the very beginning. The cocktail of life is mixed right at the moment the system is born. This means our solar system is not unique. The chemical human assembly kit is practically everywhere. We looked at spectral lines and realized before us is a universal recipe. But having ingredients doesn't guarantee a delicious dinner. For a planet to emerge from this chemical soup, something radical must happen. The chaos in the center of the system was just the prelude. The most interesting part, and the most frightening, was happening not in the center, but on the dark, cold outskirts of this vortex. Let's zoom out from the center. We are moving away from the scorching heat of the protostar into the outer regions of the disk. Eternal night reigns here, and here runs an invisible border that astronomers call the snow line. This is a magic threshold. Closer to the star, water evaporates, but beyond this line, the temperature drops so low that any vapor instantly turns into ice, and this changes the rules of the game. It is here, in the cold darkness, that kings are born. The gas giants. For a long time, we believed that Jupiter and Saturn were built slowly. We thought that first, a rocky core forms, which over millions of years collects gas from the surrounding space, grain by grain, like a child slowly and persistently rolling a huge snowball. But HOPS 315 showed us something that makes this theory burst at the seams. The HOPS 315 system is too young. It is only a few 100,000 years old. In cosmic terms, this is an infant just a couple of hours old. And yet, in the images, we see strange shadows in the outer disk. We see tears. We see clumps of matter. This means one thing: the giants are already there. They are already forming. And they are doing it frighteningly fast. What we are observing looks more like a gravitational collapse than slow construction. Imagine that a part of the gas disk becomes so heavy and dense that it simply cannot maintain its own shape. It collapses under its own weight. This is not careful construction. This is a landslide. A huge chunk of the nebula compresses into a ball the size of 1,000 Earths in just a few orbits around the star. Inside this chaos, a monster is born, a proto-Jupiter. As soon as it gains critical mass, it turns into a cosmic vacuum cleaner. Its gravity is so powerful that it begins to devour everything in its path. Gas, dust, ice, everything is sucked into its atmosphere. In Webb's images, we see characteristic gaps in the disk. These are empty lanes. These are the traces of the giant's feast. They are clearing their orbit, leaving emptiness behind. The scale of these processes is hard to grasp. These giant planets are now the most massive objects in the system after the star itself. They are the dominants. Their gravity dictates the rules for everyone else. If you are a small rock or a piece of ice, your fate depends entirely on the mood of this giant. It can pull you in and make you its moon. It can consume you forever. Or it can throw you across the entire system like a tennis ball. In the HOPS 315 system, we see the heyday of the era of giants. This is their time. This is their empire. But what is happening closer to the star? Where it is hot, where there is no ice to glue matter together, where small, fragile, rocky worlds like our Earth should be forming. Gas giants are kings. But we aren't interested in kings. We are interested in the orphans trying to survive in their massive shadow. We cross the snow line in the opposite direction and enter the inner part of the HOPS 315 system. There is no ice here. There are no majestic gas clouds here. Here, there is only stone, metal, and unbearable heat. If the outer part of the system is a cold warehouse of building materials, then the inner part is a gladiator arena. Astronomers like to use the word accretion. It sounds scientific and calm. But what is happening here is better described as a war of annihilation. The formation of a rocky planet similar to Earth is the most violent process in nature. Imagine dozens, maybe hundreds of small worlds. Astronomers call them planetesimals. These are planetary embryos the size of the Moon or Mars, and they are all locked in tight orbits around a young, hysterical star. There isn't enough space for everyone. Collisions are inevitable. When two such worlds meet, it doesn't look like a soft docking of spaceships. They crash into each other at speeds exceeding the speed of a bullet by dozens of times. The energy of the impact is so colossal that rock melts instantly. The entire surface of the planet turns into an ocean of liquid magma thousands of kilometers deep. If you looked at the early Earth or at those proto-planets that Webb sees in HOPS 315, you would see hell. No blue water, no greenery, only black smoke, red cracks, and ceaseless bombardment. It is this warm dust, the remnants of monstrous collisions, that the telescope's sensors picked up. This is the debris of the losers, the blood of stone worlds. But the chaos is amplified by what is happening outside. Remember those gas giants that formed first? They aren't just hanging in the void. They are the main bullies in this school. The gravity of Jupiter, or its analog in the HOPS system, works like a cue stick in a game of billiards. The giant shifts its orbit slightly, and its gravitational field hurls rocky planets in all directions. It is called planetary billiards. One unlucky gravitational kick, and a young planet flies off its orbit. It has few options for its fate, and all of them are sad. Option 1, it flies straight into the star. Game over. It vaporizes. Option 2, it is thrown out of the system forever. It becomes a rogue planet, doomed to drift eternally in the icy void of the galaxy in total solitude. And option 3, it crashes into another planet. This is exactly how a survivor grows. It consumes the bodies of its enemies. The Earth we walk on consists of the remains of perhaps a dozen other protoplanets that did not survive this race. In the HOPS 315 system, we see this process in full swing. We see dozens of candidates for the title of Earth. But statistics are ruthless. By the end of the system's formation, out of 100 contenders, 3 or 4 will remain. The rest will turn to dust or be exiled. But looking at this slaughter, scientists noticed one oddity. All these processes, both the birth of giants and the battles of stones, happened too fast, much faster than our old models predicted. We thought it took tens of millions of years to create Earth, but HOPS 315 hints that nature handles this task in a fraction of that time. How is this possible? What secret mechanic accelerates this process? The answer lies in small, unnoticeable pebbles that we ignored for years. In science, there is a scary moment. It is the moment when the numbers stop adding up. For decades, astrophysicists looked at Jupiter and Saturn and scratched their heads. The problem was time. According to the old theory, to create the core of a gas giant, you need about 10 million years. But observations showed that the gas disk around a star lives for only 3 to 4 million years. Then it dissipates. It was a dead end. We ended up with a situation where the house isn't built yet, but the building materials have already been stolen. Planets simply wouldn't have time to grow. But HOPS 315 confirmed a theory that saves the day. It is called pebble accretion, and it sounds harmless, but actually, it is a revolution. Forget what I said earlier about collisions of big rocks. Yes, that happens, but it is slow. It's like building a skyscraper by trying to throw bricks at each other in hopes they will stick together. Real growth happens thanks to the small stuff. Pebbles, stones a couple of centimeters in size. In the early solar system, just like in HOPS 315, there were trillions of these pebbles. They are the perfect food for planets. And here is why. Imagine a cosmic highway. A huge boulder is flying along an orbit. A small pebble flies past it. In a vacuum, this pebble would simply fly by like a Formula One driver. The boulder's gravity is too weak to capture it at such speed. But the protoplanetary disk isn't a vacuum, it is gas. Gas works like an atmosphere. It creates resistance, headwind. When a small pebble flies through gas, it feels friction, it breaks, it loses energy. And it is precisely this breaking that allows the protoplanet's gravity to grab it. It is brilliantly simple. The gas slows down the food so the planet can eat it more comfortably. Thanks to this mechanism, a small planetary core begins to grow not linearly, but exponentially. The bigger it gets, the more gas it disturbs, the more pebbles it breaks and consumes. This is no longer construction brick by brick. This is an avalanche. Models show that thanks to pebble accretion, a planet can grow from the size of the Moon to the size of Earth in just a few thousand years. On cosmic scales, this is the blink of an eye. That is why in the HOPS 315 system we already see giants. They don't need millions of years, they just need enough pebbles and a little gas. This discovery solved the time problem. We understood how nature builds so fast, but as soon as we applied this model to our own solar system, the joy of discovery was replaced by anxiety. Because if planets grow so fast and migrate so aggressively, then our solar system in its current form is an anomaly. In the history of our home, there's a chapter that was torn out of the textbooks, a chapter about how one planet nearly killed all the others. And the name of this threat is Jupiter. When we look at data from the Kepler telescope, which discovered thousands of exoplanets, we see one pattern. The most common type of planet in the universe is super-Earths, large rocky worlds orbiting very close to their stars. But they aren't in the solar system. Mercury is tiny, and inside its orbit, there is emptiness. Why? Are we outcasts? Are we a mistake? HOPS 315 and computer simulations give us an answer called the Grand Tack hypothesis. And this story turns Jupiter from a protector into a destroyer. In the early solar system, Jupiter formed first. It was huge, and there was still a lot of gas around. Due to interaction with this gas, Jupiter began to lose energy. It went off course. It began to fall into the system towards the sun. Imagine a bowling ball rolling across a table filled with crystal glasses. Jupiter passed through the zone where the asteroid belt is now. It barged into the inner system where Earth and Mars are now located. But we weren't there then. The first generation of planets was there. Probably those very super-Earths. Jupiter's gravity worked like a snowplow blade. It knocked these first planets out of their orbits, smashed them into each other, ground them into rubble, and eventually sent most of the debris to be eaten by the sun. The entire inner solar system was sterilized. It was a total purge. If Jupiter had continued its movement, it would have fallen into the sun too, and our system would have remained empty. But a miracle happened. The name of this miracle is Saturn. Saturn formed later and further out, but it also began to migrate inward. It caught up with Jupiter, and at that moment, unique gravitational magic kicked in. The two planets entered resonance. Saturn, like a younger brother, yanked the older one by the leash. Their combined gravity stopped the fall. They turned around. They performed the Grand Tack and began to migrate back to the outer borders of the system where they are now. Jupiter left, but it left behind a graveyard. The inner system was full of debris, and it was from these leftovers, from the trash remaining after the death of the first generation of planets, that we formed. Earth, Venus, Mars, and Mercury are children of the ruins. We are the system's second attempt to create life. This explains everything. This explains why Mars is so small. Jupiter simply stole all the building material from its zone during its drive-by. This explains the asteroid belt. These are the very debris that Jupiter prevented from assembling into a planet. We live in a world that miraculously survived a visit from a giant. And when we look at the image of HOPS 315, we see the very same processes. We see dark rings, we see migration. Perhaps right now in the Orion constellation, some distant gas giant is destroying chances for the emergence of life without even noticing it. Or, conversely, it is clearing the path for something new. We look at this distant cocoon and wonder, what will this world become when the dust settles? The story of HOPS 315, which we are observing right now, is at the very beginning of the first chapter. But because we have studied thousands of other stars, we know how this episode ends. Chaos cannot last forever. In a few 100,000 years, the all-you-can-eat buffet will close. The protostar in the center will gain enough mass and temperature to start full-fledged thermonuclear reactions. It will stop contracting and begin to truly shine. At that moment, the stellar wind will turn on. Powerful streams of radiation will blast from the star in all directions. It will be like construction workers finally removing the scaffolding and blowing the dust off the finished building. The stellar wind will sweep the remnants of gas and light dust to the outskirts of the system. The fog will lift. The dark cocoon that James Webb sees now will vanish. And for the first time, this system will become visible in ordinary optical light. But for the planets, this will be the moment of truth. As soon as the gas disappears, the friction that helped them grow will disappear too. The feeding stops. Those planets that didn't manage to gain mass will remain dwarfs. Those who managed to become giants will cement their status. The era of great calm will begin. Orbits will align. Collisions will become a rarity, not an everyday occurrence. Magma oceans on rocky planets will begin to cool, becoming covered with a thin crust of basalt. Perhaps, on one of these planets, the first rain will fall. But here is what boggles the imagination. When HOPS 315 becomes as mature and stable a system as ours, 4 billion years will have passed. By that time, our sun will already begin to die. It will swell into a red giant, swallow Mercury and Venus, and perhaps burn up the Earth. We look at HOPS 315 across an abyss of time. We are the past looking at its future, and they are the future repeating our past. There is something incredibly lonely about this fact. We will never know if life appears there. We will never know if someone from the surface of that distant planet looks up at the sky to see the dim light of our dying sun. The gap in time is too great. We are ships that passed in the ocean of time with the difference of an entire geological epoch. But despite this unreachability, the image of HOPS 315 gave us something more than just data. It gave us context. We felt lonely for a long time. We thought that our history was a unique chain of accidents, a miracle impossible to repeat. Now we know this is not a miracle. This is standard procedure. Right now, as we approach the end of this video, in our galaxy alone, about 7 new stars are being born. 7 new systems, 7 new attempts to create a world. Every second, the universe mixes the dough for life. And this brings us to the final thought, a thought that changes how you will look at the night sky tonight. At the beginning of this video, I asked you to imagine darkness, the cold, empty darkness of the Orion constellation. We aimed the most expensive and complex instrument ever created by man into this darkness. We expected to see scientific data. We expected to see temperature graphs and chemical formulas. But what we found turned out to be much more personal. Looking at HOPS 315, we are looking in a mirror. All the fury of gravitational collapse, all these collisions of planets, all this incredible chemistry of alcohol clouds and ice fields, all of this is part of our biography. The iron in your blood, the calcium in your bones, the carbon in your DNA. Every atom of your body was once there, inside exactly such a cocoon. It swirled in the same deadly waltz around a young star. It survived the meter barrier. It survived the kill zone. We often look at space as something external, as a cold, hostile environment separated from us by a layer of atmosphere. But James Webb reminded us of a simple truth. We do not exist inside the universe. We are the universe. We are the way the cosmos knows itself. We are stardust that after billions of years of chaos, accidental collisions, and happy mistakes, suddenly gained consciousness, stood on 2 legs, built a telescope, and looked up to see where it came from. The HOPS 315 system is going through hell right now, so that in billions of years perhaps, it can create someone who will also look at the sky. And when you next go outside and look at the Orion constellation, find that patch of darkness just below the hunter's belt with your eyes. You won't see HOPS 315 with the naked eye, but you will know that there, in the silence, right now, a new light is being kindled, and history begins anew. Thank you for being with us on this journey through time and dust.